it's recording now. So here's the map tips, just a refresher in case those we don't remember. It's in the map manager, and there's a tab called map tips. In the map tips, when you click on, for example, assets, you can define what the map tips will have on here. And I made some modifications to be easier to find on the map. So locations, I kind of did it in green, and the service request, I did it in purple. So this is where you define your map tips, and that's where when the bubble came up, you highlight it, and then the mouse over will come up, and then when you clicked on it, the map tips box will come up. And like I said, that's all still there. Now let's actually go to demonstrate it. I'm going to go directly to service request. I created a link, service request link to a feature. Okay. Right here, this is the bubble I was talking to you about. As you can see, if I go over it and then click on it, the map tips come up, as you can see here, SR map tips. So the new thing is what I did was, let me go back a little bit, one right there. When you click on the identify tool, and then I click on like here, he finds 17 of them. Now you can see here, the only one that's showing up is search and results. So I'm going to go through real quick and find one that has a link. And here we have a link. Now, right here, the reason why I know it's a link is because I can set as current, and this little image will change later. It's being in development right now, but right now I'm just using this as my maximum linked map tips. As you can see, the tooltip here, the tooltip here, not the tooltip, the title. I'm sorry, the title is maximum linked map tips. That's what I gave it, and that should be, gone through, redone for all the different languages. So I know this is, like I was saying before, I know this is a linked feature because these two came up. So when I click on this, and I know it's an asset, as you can see, it's an asset. As you see up here, we're actually in service request MBO. So we're able to see the asset map tips, and we can click on it, and it comes up just as normal. One of the things it does is that if I go to a next feature, the box disappears. I did that on purpose. So it disappears so no one gets confused. And then this water main is my location. So when I click here, locations map will come up. Map tips will come up. And again, now it only has 2 drill downs, and that's all it has. So I could view a work detail here. And you can see here it says location, GIS water. So that is basically it. Everything is basically the same except for this new map tips. And if I navigate, it has the map tips box has the same functionality as the main identity. In other words, if this disappears, that'll disappear. The only time it won't disappear if I just manually just click this. Click itself, it'll stay there. But if I go to results tab here, the functionality was to remove the identify tool, and again the map tips tool will also disappear, and again it's not highlighted up here, and that's basically the default of what it is today. I just made sure it behaved the same. And so it's the same if I go over here. You see the map tips here. So if I go to the query by attributes, they both disappear. So I just kind of made the same behavior. So, and that is it basically. So the hardest part of this whole thing was the original code, which I left most of it intact, is really tied closely together with this bubble. So I had to really understand what was going on here before I can really attack this problem and complete this requirement. But that's it. And those of you who haven't seen uh, the icons, they replaced now. That was in sub 2. I don't think I had a demo on that because it was an easy one to do. But all it is just the images are replaced now, and you just highlight over them and the same information underneath. So again, when Map Tools is there, when you go back to the service request, it should all disappear, which it does. And same thing if I go reverse, if I go to assets. And I search for the sampling. This is a service request. I just made it up. Just made that one a service request. And it finds a service request link to this one. I'm just going to locate it, zoom into it. And that's it right here. So then when I go to the identity and click on this guy, yeah, you got the wrong one. Click it. There's 2 of them here. They're just close. There goes one. Second one is the linked one, which it is linked. I click it, and the service request map tips come up. As you can see, I did the location for it, searched in the results, zoomed in, found it in the identified tools, and service request map tips came up. And this one had 3, which is basically really just asset. Yeah, I linked this asset to it to make this work. I linked this asset to that service request so we can see it. Detailed information. In fact, if I go down, it should have the GIS. Here goes the GIS test 1 service request. That's it, guys. Not much really to tell. The hard part was really trying to figure how it worked because I'd never worked on this stuff before in the map tips or anything, or identity tools really. So that's it. Any questions?
Uh, Roger, just for my curiosity, how did you trigger the maximal dialog from the JavaScript combo box?
For this thing right here? This,
Yep.
yeah, I leveraged what was there today. I called it, I leveraged it. I did not reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
Everything's the same, and everything should behave the same too. Hope that answered the
Oh,
question.
you just send a request to Maximal telling the dialog on the URL as it was done before, right?
Exactly how it was done before. I didn't touch that code. I try to
Mm-hmm.
leverage as much as I can. The only thing I did modify is the map tips code, which I'll show you here in a little bit. I took what I needed out of it and made a special JavaScript file for it, and I linked it to the identify code to do all this. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
and I'll
Okay.
show you in the code review. It follows right after this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions? Craig, Milton, Chris? Pretty easy. The only thing I did do for different languages is the maximal linked map tips. That's the only thing. You hover it, and that's the title, and you click it. It's also the title of this. But everything in here is whatever the guy puts in, whatever the customer puts in. Anything
Roger.
else?
And Roger, after this meet, could you send me your map manager configuration so I can compare with my testing data here?
Sure, sure. I can send you the
Thank you.
copy. Yeah, it's kind of bastardized. What I did was I kind of used two different maps, but they have the same Illinois map. But I used one from Service Sample 6, and my water utility one I used for the service request one. So it's bastardized, but I just did it for what I wanted to. See, this one is for did this one for service request here, and then for the the other one, the server 6 sample, I did these. In fact, I don't think I'm not using 8 actually, even though it's there. I'm not using it. I'm just using these two. And that's actually, this one could be deleted because I'm not using that. All right, so let's go back. Any other question, guys, before we move on to the quick code review?
You're gonna send a link of the recording?
Sure, sure. Do you want me to go over here, let me go over the map manager in case you guys aren't familiar again. Just a quickie. So I created a map manager. I did my map services and all that stuff. What I did is that in the map tips, you defined if you relate a feature object to one of these. Right now, for spatial, the only one we work with is work order, service request, service address, locations, and asset. The AM crew and labor is done by another scheduler maybe. So so that's why when I went in here in the assets, and I click it here. This right here, the menu items, is kind of, these are defaults. You just leave the defaults alone because you got to really know, in order to add a new one, you got to know the dialog identifier. And the dialog identifier is defined in the XML, usually stored in the library.xml. And what they do, they help you display that box that comes up that pertains to different MBOs. So unless you really know how to do that, you really don't want to new. We have the option for you to add new ones if the person knows how to do this stuff, but right off the box, that's all we have. But the most interesting here is also the map tips. So when we click that little arrow down, the map tips is what we focus on, and it can do whatever they want here. And this always been there. And same thing with locations and service requests that I did. And then once that's defined, when you go to Map Manager here, and when you defined your features, like this one, I said that this GIS thing is a GIS WSV, which is water system valve. I just created that GIS object for it. And it's related to asset. So that means so now any feature that's related to this GIS object, and it's related to an maximal object asset, and so the map tips will go for that stuff, to that stuff. So hopefully I explained that easy enough for you guys to follow. Anything else? Going once, going twice. That's it. So we're done. I'm going to show you the map one more time. And then I'm going to stop the recording. And if any one of you want to review it, let me know and I'll put it up on that IBM shared cloud, and you guys can get it. So these are the new. This is the link. This is a new one. Uh, um, Michael showed me that he really already had a few, so that one's already done. So that's the link one. This is what we're waiting for still, the MapTips icon. But I wouldn't wait for you to for this thing to come in yet. I mean, this is just an easy, quick plug-in. Once he finds the image, is 5 minutes it'll be done, and it's all he's going to do. The function, nothing, no functionality will be changed, just a different image. That's it. Okay, this is done.